Hey guys, today we are going to read for our Wednesday Tales with a Twist for our 30-point special journal. We do every Wednesday, or I've tried to keep it to Wednesdays. And this short story, or tale with a twist, is called The Open Window by Saki. I did decide to open it in a different window, so I don't know if I'll have focus mouse, but we'll see. No, we won't have focus mouse. I'm so sorry. But this has some great questions. I really like this, the way this text is presented. You can see both sides, and you can really see the literary focus things and read those while I'm reading to you. So, and we'll have the questions for journal, and also this PDF will be available in journal as well. So without further ado, The Open Window by Saki. My aunt will be down presently, Mr. Nuttall, said a very self-possessed young lady of 15. In the meantime, you must try and put up with me. Frampton Nuttall endeavored to say the correct something which should duly flatter the niece of the moment without unduly discounting the aunt that was to come. Privately, he doubted more than ever whether these formal visits on a succession of total strangers would do much toward helping the nerve cure which he was supposed to be undergoing. So he's nerve cure, right? I know how it will be, his sister had said when he was preparing to migrate to his rural retreat. You will bury yourself down there and not speak to a living soul, and your nerves will be worse than ever from moping. I shall just give you letters of introduction to all the people I know there. Some of them, as far as I can remember, were quite nice. Frampton wondered whether Mrs. Sappleton, the lady to whom he was presenting one of the letters of introduction, came into the nice division. Do you know many of the people around here? Asked the niece when she judged that they had had sufficient silent communion. Hardly a soul, said Frampton. My sister was staying here at the rectory. If you notice, the footnote says a house in which the minister of a parish lives. Some 4 years ago, and she gave me letters of introduction to some of the people here. So we know he is going to this place to be with total strangers in order to try. Evidently, he's had a nervous breakdown, right? And he's going to calm his nerves, hopefully, although his sister is not so sure, even though she helped him. Uh, and then if you look here, the visual that they put with this for viewing and interpreting is after reading the story, describe how this girl reminds you of Vera. So we're evidently going to meet Vera in just a second. And again, just keep in mind the open window is what we're kind of looking for as far as purpose and listening for is to discover how a family story affects a nervous visitor. Okay, so we're back to where he said, I don't really know anyone, but here's the connection, which is my sister. He made the last statement in a tone of distinct regret. Then you know practically nothing about my aunt, pursued the self possessed young lady. Only her name and address, admitted the caller. He was wondering whether Mrs. Sappleton was in the married or widowed state. An undefinable something about the room seemed to suggest masculine habitation. So there's something about the room that made him believe. Sorry, I'm moving my window. That made him think that this lady, there was a guy living there, basically. Her great tragedy happened just 3 years ago, said the child. That would be since your sister's time. Her tragedy? Asked Frampton. Somehow in this restful country spot, tragedies seemed out of place. You may wonder why we keep that window wide open on October afternoon, said the niece, indicating a large French window that opened onto a lawn. And French window, we call them French doors these days, a pair of doors that have glass panes from the top to the bottom and open in the middle. Let me just I know last time y'all like seeing the pictures like I do in class. So let's just make sure everybody's seen a French window. French windows. Like I said, I think they call them doors now. I guess you could have the windows, the hinged French windows, and the doors actually. Like either way, it's this kind of thing where you've got the double, and people can just pop them. It's where you can make a grand exit if you want to. Or entrance, depending on which way the doors open, where you can like swing them open. So those are the French windows, French doors. So she is saying that this tragedy somehow is connected to these wide open windows, these large French windows that opened out onto the lawn. So, if you notice, the reading focus here is making inferences. Remember, inferring, implying, people imply, and then you infer from the implication. You can infer from his tone of distinct regret, that's a good way to put it, that Frampton isn't thrilled about having to meet new people, right? Uh, who is? Well, some people like new people. Certainly, after a nervous breakdown, you may be weary, depending on what happened, of humans. So, because of that tone, he's kind of regretting, we can tell, his decision to come here to calm his nerves. Okay, so onward with the story. So let's see if we can zoom a little bit. Oh, fit to width. There we go. It is quite warm for this time of year, said Frampton, but has that window got anything to do with the tragedy? That's the question we had. Out through that window, 3 years ago today, to a day, her husband and her two younger brothers went off for their day's shooting. They never came back. Woo! In crossing the moor, and a moor is like a little marshy kind of. Here, I'll just show you. Um, the Moors were also a people in northern Africa, and also some in southern Spain. And anyway, this is what the Moors look like. You can just see that it's like hill country, I guess, kind of like shadowy hill countries, you can think. And crossing the moor to their favorite snipe shooting ground. And it says here, snipe is a kind of bird that lives in swampy areas. It's true. It used to be a joke. People would say, "Oh, we're going snipe hunting," and they would take you out into the woods, and there was nothing to catch, and it was all a big joke on you. Ha ha ha. There's nothing out there, but there actually is a bird called a snipe. It's strange. In crossing the moor to their favorite snipe shooting ground, they were all three engulfed in a treacherous piece of bog. Swampy, bleh, mud that makes that noise. It had been here. Look at a bog. There you go. Yeah, so you see the boggy parts and how it's, yes, very, very swampy, boggy. It had been that dreadful wet summer, and places that were safe in other years gave way suddenly without warning. Their bodies were never recovered. That was the dreadful part of it. Here the child's voice lost its self-possessed no, I'm trying to get by where you can see me. And where'd it go? Their bodies were never recovered. That was the dreadful part. Here the child's voice lost its self-possessed note and became falteringly. So that is, as you know, ly, adverb, falteringly human. Poor aunt always thinks that they will come back someday. They and the little brown spaniel that was lost with them. Oh, Adelgo. And walk in at that window just as they used to do. That is why the window is kept open every evening till it's quite dusk. Oh, poor dear aunt. She's often told me how they went out, her husband with his white waterproof coat over his arm, and Ronnie, her youngest brother, singing Birdie, why do you bound? As he always did to tease her because she said it got on her nerves. Do you know, sometimes on still, quiet evenings like this, I almost get a creepy feeling they'll all walk in through that window. She broke off with a little shudder. It was a relief to Frampton when the aunt bustled into the room with a whirl of apologies for being late and making her appearance. So notice Vera's and Frampton's reactions to the creepy story of the missing family members. Vera shudders, and then Frampton just feels awkward and uncomfortable, which I think I get. Sorry, I'm trying to center myself. Okay, there we go. So again, characterization. We found out, remember characterization, look at dialogue, look at character actions. Um, so I hope Vera has been amusing you, she said. She's been very interesting, said Frampton. So when somebody goes, interesting, it means they don't know what to say. I hope you don't mind the open window, said Mrs. Sappleton briskly. My husband and brothers will be home directly from shooting, and they'll always come in this way. They've been out for snipe in the marshes today, so they'll make a fine mess over my poor carpets. So like you menfolk, isn't it? Okay, so creepy. She's acting like they're not dead or gone. She rattled on cheerfully about the shooting and the scarcity of birds and the prospects for duck in the winter. To Frampton, it was all purely horrible. He made a desperate, I know, awkward, like more than awkward. He made a desperate, only partially successful effort to turn the talk onto a less ghastly topic. He was conscious that his hostess was giving him only a fragment of her attention, and her eyes were constantly straying past him, you guessed it, to the window, the open window in the lawn beyond. It was certainly an unfortunate coincidence that he should have paid his visit on this tragic anniversary. The doctors agree in ordering me complete rest, an absence of mental excitement, and avoidance of anything in the nature of violent physical exercise. I like that idea. Violent physical exercise. Announced Frampton, who labored under the tolerably widespread delusion that total strangers and chance acquaintances are hungry for the least detail of one's ailments and infirmities, their cause and cure. My mama used to do that. She would you'd be like, "How are you doing?" And the next thing you get like a litany, which is like a list of like all the things wrong with her. So Frampton's kind of doing that, but he's like, what else could I change the subject to you? But we do see again characterization that Frampton's a bit of a bore, going on and on about his health. On the matter of so more characterization. On the matter of diet, they're not so much in agreement, he continued. No, said Mrs. Sappleton, in a voice which only replaced a yawn at the last moment. She's like, yeah, no. See, you got it. Then she suddenly brightened into alert attention, but not to what Frampton was saying. Oh, here they are at last, she cried, just in time for tea. And don't they look as if they were muddy up to the eyes? Frampton shivered slightly and turned toward the niece with a look intended to convey sympathetic comprehension. The child was staring out through the open window with dazed horror in her eyes. In a chill shock of nameless fear, Frampton swung around in his seat and looked in the same direction. And in the deepening twilight, three figures were walking across the lawn toward the window. Ooh, it gave me chills. I just got chills. They all carried guns under their arms, and one of them was additionally burdened with a white coat. Remember, we heard about that, hung over his shoulders. A tire brown spaniel, the doggo, kept close at their heels. Noiselessly, another adverb, they neared the house, and then a hoarse young voice chanted out of the dusk. I said, Birdie, why do you bound? It's that guy. Frampton grabbed wildly at his stick and hat. The hall door, the gravel drive, and the front gate were dimly noted stages in his headlong retreat. A cyclist coming along the road had run into the hedge to avoid imminent collision. Here we are, my dear, said the bearer of the white mackintosh coming in through the window. Fairly muddy, but most of it's dry. Who was that who bolted out as we came up? A most extraordinary man, a Mr. Newtell, said Mrs. Sappleton. He could only talk about his illness and dashed off without a word of goodbye or apology when you arrived. One would think he had seen a ghost. Huh. Now that we know more about the situation, we probably need to adjust, right, what we were feeling about the characters. She seems pretty sane all of a sudden. I expect it was the here, let me fit it. I expect it was the spaniel, said the niece calmly. He told me he had a horror of dogs. He was once hunted into a cemetery somewhere on the banks of the Ganges by a pack of pariah dogs, and he had to spend the night in a newly dug grave with the creatures snarling and grinning and foaming just above him. Enough to make anyone lose their nerve. Romance at short notice was this girl's specialty. Cool. So, that was a twist. That was the twist. And if you look here, the author tells us in the last sentence why Vera has been making up stories. Romance here doesn't refer to a love affair. Actually, originally defined, it was defined by Nathaniel Hawthorne. I'm not reading that there. I've taught it for so long. But it refers to a story that has adventurous, mysterious, or heroic characters and plot. So romantic did not used to mean lovey-dovey, lovey. Some of it was lovey, but all right. So now for your journal, you can number one, tell me what you thought of the story. Just tell me what you thought of the ending. You can answer any or all of these questions I'm going to go over. It's in this great little magazine thing. Read with a purpose. So how does Frampton Newtell react to what happens after Vera tells her story? Do you feel sorry for him? Why or why not? Like, do you feel like it was an okay prank to play, or do you feel kind of bad that it was played on him? And then just a little bit about the author. Saki is the pen name of Hector Hugh Munro. He was born in Burma, now called Myanmar in Southeast Asia, where his father, a Scottish military officer, was posted. Later in England, Saki's mother died, and he and his siblings were raised by their grandmother and two aunts. Although living with his strict and often bickering arguing aunts was an unpleasant experience, it helped Saki develop this mischievous sense of humor that later made his writing famous. Saki is well known for his funny yet often creepy stories. It's been said that when we read his stories, our laughter is only a note or two short of a scream of fear. So, isn't that a great quote? Our laughter is only a note or two short of a scream of fear. So, how is that evident in this story? That part of Saki's writing style where the laughter is only a note or two short of a scream of fear. And what elements of Saki's humor do you think about the writer, that you see in this short story, The Open Window? Or you can talk about characterization and see this character flow chart. You could just recreate this in your journal, completing a flow chart like the one below for either Frampton, Nuttall, or for Vera. Those are our two main characters. Remember, the other ones are kind of just there. Discuss Vera's character with a in your journal. You can't do this with a partner. But we would normally, discuss this in class. Do it in your journal though. Is she cruel or basically harmless? Do you think she's mean for doing this to him? Support your opinion with details from the text, or do you think he kind of deserved it? And then, of course, try to use some academic vocabulary there, which we see here: incident, factor, interact, and response. And then finally, you can answer any or all of these. What can you tell about Vera and Frampton from the way they interact? In what way is Vera's story a critical factor of Saki's tale? And then think about Frampton's response when the hunters return home. How might his response to this incident have kept Vera from getting into trouble? And then again, just look at the vocabulary, academic vocabulary, and note those words and what they mean. What did the character's behavior during the scary incident reveal about her? See, there's the academic vocabulary. Factors to consider when analyzing a character. Characters reveal their personalities when they interact. And to learn more about a character, observe his or her response to a stressful event, just like we learn about each other in those times. So the literary skills that you're getting is analyzing character, making inferences, making connections, making judgments about characters, and of course, using academic vocabulary appropriately. You can get some bonus for using one of these or all of these 4 words as well in your response. All right, I've talked enough. Now you need to get to writing. Happy Tales with a Twist Day.